Hello, everybody. A Hangry Table here. Happy April Fools. I think you might be watching it on April 1st, possibly, maybe. I don't know. We are certainly feeling like a few April Fools here because, boy, oh boy, do we have a movie for you. But Lou, I think, should I introduce
It's all my fault. You can blame me.
Yes, and we fully will.
And let me just explain where all this came from. As you may know, a few weeks ago, we did a tribute to the late, great Carl Weathers and covered his movie Action Jackson. And in the course of researching that, I discovered that there is a Bollywood version of Action Jackson that bears zero resemblance to that original movie except the name. But I watched it, and damn it, it's fun. It's bizarre. It's strange. It carries things to a level that Bollywood does, if you've ever seen a Bollywood movie. And I thought, well, that would be kind of fun for April Fools. This is a movie that is not in English, that has no English subtitles that we've been able to find. It is in Hindi, and about every 35th word or so, they say something in English, just to kind of remind you that India once had some English people in it. And so you may not quite understand every detail of what the heck's going on because the plot is extremely convoluted, with the star playing two look-alike guys who are totally different. And it's an action movie. It's a amazing stunt and wire work and swords and guns and explosions action movie. It's also a musical. It's also a comedy, all in one movie. And it is, to my experience, something totally unique. And you know, our theme song, if we have one, on this show every week is, if contemporary lousy movies are giving you the bummers, there's plenty of stuff out there to see that's on tape or on YouTube or on other sources of places to see it. And so here's one that's totally out there for that reason.
It's very much out there.
And one of the things I wanted to explain to people who may not be very familiar or even think they are is what Bollywood is. Bollywood, of course, is the Indian film industry. And it started in Bombay, hence the B-O at the front, and Hollywood being Hollywood. But here are the differences. Hollywood puts out 400, maybe in a good year, 500 movies. Lately, not even anywhere near that many because of the strikes, a year. Bollywood puts out 1,500 to 2,000 feature films a year. Okay? Their revenue total is $3.7 billion, which is doubly impressive when you realize the ticket prices there are like a nickel, a dime, whatever. The global estimated audience of Bollywood was 3.6 billion in 2020.
Wow.
2.7 billion movie theater tickets are sold in India, the most in the world. 2,000 screens for digital movies. And again, the average price is like 5 cents American for a ticket. So when you make that kind of money on 5 cents a pop, the most profitable Bollywood movie ever is a movie called Dangal that generated $330 million worldwide. And they employ over 230,000 people. And the wealthiest Bollywood actor is a guy named Shahrukh Khan, and he's supposed to have a net worth of $750 million. So that's the kind of juggernaut we're dealing with here. You know, it's just huge. It's just plain huge. So, and this movie, I should mention, was not a success, was not popular. The Indians said that it wasn't that good. In fact, it turns out, I didn't know this, or I wouldn't have told you anyway, guys, before I suggested it. The Indians have their version of the, what do they call it? The raspberries, or the
Razzies.
Yeah. For what they consider to be the worst, this won in every category, including categories you might not be aware of that they have. For example, Ajay Devgn, the star, won for worst actor. Sonakshi Sinha won for worst actress. They won for worst on-screen couple together. The scenes of Manasvi Mamgai kissing our hero won for That's Anything But Sexy, which is a category. And the continuing running gag at the beginning where Sonakshi Sinha keeps opening up places, doors and things where our hero is standing naked and looking at his genitals for good luck, supposedly. That won the WTF was that award.
You know what? That actually makes me feel a bit better because I was really, I had zero experience watching Bollywood films. I've never seen it. Like, this is literally the first one I've ever watched. And I'm sitting there for most of it when I wasn't in sort of abject confusion thinking, is this typical of Bollywood movies? Like, maybe we should actually do like a proper Bollywood movie, like that's
I don't know what one would be is the thing.
I don't know either, but it has to be better than this one.
I was reading reviews of some of these actors' various movies, and for some reason they're really obsessed, and maybe it's because it's the style of the films, with facial expressions. In this one, they say, well, she didn't pull off the facial expressions very well. That's a big no-no with the critics there. Go figure. I don't know why. But it's a different culture, and we can certainly grant them that. I just think there's a whole heck of a lot of fun in this thing. I just do.
And I think part of that fun will be to ask Lorn to give us a plot synopsis.
Go for it.
Okay. I'm going to try with the caveat that there are still things in this movie that I'm not quite sure I understand. And okay, let me think for a moment to figure out how I'm going to do this. I guess I'll start with the beginning part of the movie, the very beginning part of the movie. I really don't understand how this falls into the plot. I know that it introduces the fact that you have a gangster who is killing a woman who I'm not sure what her relationship to anybody is, but she supposedly knows where this guy named AJ is at. And that's why they're trying to hunt her down, is to figure out where he's at.
And she runs really fast.
Yeah, until she kind of gets
grown muscular men.
Yeah, well, yeah. Eventually, we kind of catch up with this guy named, I think it's Vishu. Is that right? Vishy?
Yeah, something like that.
Vishy, okay.
Something's fishy, that's for sure. Vishy, yes, Vishy.
He is, it looks like an employee of some kind at a local hotel, very kind to the guests. He's very popular with his manager. He's got a best friend that he kind of abuses. And you kind of get
comic relief. You know, he's the... God.
Jack Black.
Well, yeah, Jack Black or
Black Galifianakis in The Hangover.
Yeah, there you go. That kind of thing. He's the funny sidekick.
The lovable schlub. And eventually there's, through a series of events, you see this guy apparently at a bar, and there's some kind of a fight that breaks out. I'm gathering, I think, that at some point in the past he had upset these people and kind of kicks a lot of butt, and there's this local girl that sees him and kind of falls in love with him, sort of.
Right.
Becomes obsessed with him and tells her girlfriends all about him, and they're kind of trying to get her to find him again, I think. There's these series of incidents where she runs into him in various places, like they were saying, walks in on him while he's changing clothes, and there's this running gag that keeps going on. There's also a number of food-related running gags that keep popping up regularly.
The bit where they're on the motor scooter and the little donuts or whatever they are flying off, and the guy behind them is chasing behind and eating them.
The CG donuts, I might
Yes.
add. Yeah. Now, what's odd about all of this is that sometimes she runs into this guy and he's really smooth and cool. And in fact, in that first action scene, there's a whole musical number with a poster behind him of Superman. And the musical number is about Superman. And that's what she calls it. And other times she runs into him and he's just this nerdy guy who can't seem to get his act together. And she's confused by all of this. And all of this takes about 45 minutes, okay? So there's a long intro to this movie where eventually there's the reveal that these are two different guys. And
happen to look alike. They're not brothers. They're not long-lost cousins. They're just identical twins from another mother or something like that.
Right, and she doesn't know it initially. And there's a period at which these guys that are now trying to hunt down the cool and smooth guy, the
gangster, the assassin.
Yeah, well, yes, but we don't really know that as the audience.
Right.
They see the schlubby guy and they start chasing him. He runs. He kind of makes his escape. And then the smooth guy comes down the elevator and encounters them and kind of decimates them. There's a couple other scenes where eventually they pass. The smooth guy figures out that he's got a lookalike, tracks him down, And then there's this giant flashback that starts to explain everything. And from my standpoint, this is actually where the movie takes off. The gist of it is the smooth guy was an assassin / enforcer for the local mafia boss who is an arms dealer.
The Indian mafia boss.
Yeah. And at one
Who's
point.
based in Bangkok, not in India, by the way.
And at one point, there is a rival gang that has kidnapped his wife, girlfriend, mall, whatever she is. And so the mob boss says, get AJ on it. And he goes and absolutely destroys the rival gangs while this mafia mall is all tied up in a chair. And she becomes completely obsessed with him, in love with him.
I think she's the daughter of the bad guy, of the gangster.
The sister.
Oh, sister.
Is that what it is?
Okay.
That's what the synopsis is saying that I'm quickly reading right now.
I had no way to know. And so,
She's a babe. By the way, the actress who plays the bad girl, turns out she came to America and she's very involved with the Trump campaign as their official Indian outreach person to the Indian American voters. So how's that for a switcheroo?
Well,
that's her on the screen right there.
In any case, she has the belief that because she is so powerful that she can have anything that she wants. And so she decides that she's going to seduce AJ, but AJ is not interested. And that kind of sets off the entire track for the rest of the movie. She's obsessed with him. She wants him. He won't have her.
He's married, apparently.
It turns out he's married, yes.
And I don't remember what actually causes him to leave the mob boss's employ. I kind of forget. There's a lot that happens in this movie, and so I've sort of forgotten.
That's the understatement of the year. Yes, keep going. You're doing great.
So at any point, he takes off and tries to disappear into a crowd until everything else happens, and they the lookalikes accidentally get involved in each other's lives and cause each other all of these complications. Now, here's another part that I didn't understand. Now, AJ is married. He's got a baby on the way, and they switch places. I think what happens is that the mob boss figures out where he's at and tracks him down. They're on some kind of a vacation, AJ and his wife. And they track her down in the garage, his wife, while he's going back upstairs to retrieve a necklace that she lost. And they beat her to within an inch of her life while she's pregnant. And I believe they think that she's dead, but he manages to get her to a doctor and get the baby delivered, and her life is saved and everything else.
Because he notices one of her fingers is twitching. And
Right.
I just got to say, I'll talk about this later, but wow, they do not shy away from depictions of violence against women in this film.
They absolutely don't.
Well, they have to prove they're really bad guys, so we enjoy watching them all destroyed. And when we talk about action, folks, we're talking swords, we're talking bombs, he kicks a guy, anybody else would have kicked him into a car. He kicks him through the car.
Yeah.
This thing is astoundingly pyrotechnic. Anyway, go ahead.
Now, this is a part I didn't understand, at least not entirely. He manages to convince the schlubby guy to switch places with him.
Yeah.
And it feels to me like this actually goes on for quite a while. And so I'm not quite sure what the plan was, because it looked like up until a certain point, he was just going to remain in the mob boss's employ. And there's even kind of one of my favorite scenes where the mob boss kind of has him stand in the meeting for him with some of the other people that he's trying to do a weapons deal with. And they start asking him questions about the particular weapons that are being offered, what caliber, how many rounds are in a magazine, what's the rate of fire, all of this type of stuff. Well, he's a schlub who doesn't know anything about weapons. And he's kind of sitting there and he's trying to be nonchalant and going, yeah, okay, you're trying to catch me on something. And he's trying to look cool. And he takes a sip of water and he kind of looks at them. And then he starts rattling off all of these details that are absolutely correct. And his schlubby buddy is sitting at the table going, how do you know this? And he looks over and he sees he's actually looking it up on his cell phone. That's why he was wasting time trying to figure out what the answers to the questions were. And then the British guy actually presses him on, well, the Chinese are offering this other weapon that they're offering it cheaper. And he comes back with details. It's like, well, they have these issues with this weapon and this has got a higher rate of fire. You're going to get a better deal here. But his phone runs out of juice because earlier his schlubby buddy had been using his phone to play a video game. And so he ran out of power right in the middle of when he needed to have these answers. And there's a moment of panic. And then he stands up and he shoots one of the guys at the table and he says, Interpol. And everybody is like, I knew it. And he walks off and he gets out of the situation.
They're like,
okay.
If he kills somebody, that means that guy was up to something no good. So it was justified.
Yeah, so there's actually some clever stuff in here. But in any case, I also forgot to mention that the local police, are on the payroll of this mafia arms dealer guy. And one of them is out in the community and spots the real AJ, who's going about his life, and realizes, oh, there's two of these guys. And he calls the mob boss, informs him of what's going on. He sends a hit team basically to his place to capture his wife and his new baby again. And that sets up the showdown at the very end, in which crazy witch lady shaves off all of her hair for some reason. And there's
you watched too much Doja Cat. That's what
there's a giant warehouse battle that is like nothing you've probably ever seen. Of course, the bad guys get their comeuppance. Both of the now complete families come together, including the schlubby guy his buddy, who by all accounts should be completely dead, but they have a happy ending. The movie,
by the way, along the way, everybody takes a trip to Austria where four guys in Elvis suits serenade them. There is no sense. There is no reason, but gosh, you don't care really if you just turn off that part of your brain and go for it.
It's weird. It's watching the movie. First of all, I want to say I was incredibly skeptical of this entire idea. I really thought this was a bad idea. It's like, I don't know how we're going to talk about this. We can't understand what anybody is saying. It is a Bollywood picture, and this is my first experience too, although I have some awareness of what Bollywood cinema is like. The best way I can describe it is that, one, it was far more comedic than I thought it was going to be. It has all of the action movie tropes that you would expect from American cinema, but they are exaggerated, which is part of the Bollywood style, I think. Everything is exaggerated, and I think that's why they make a big deal about the facial expressions, is that it's almost a kind of pantomime, and they expect that because that's part of their cinematic tradition. But it's also got elements of like a Mexican telenovela, which is weird. It has it has some very short animated sequences. It's throw a whole bunch of stuff in a blender. CG. Yeah, and that's what you get. It's a very weird thing to try and classify.
And then the closing credits are the director, choreographer of the movie, and our star doing a whole other dance number, for God's sakes.
And it was all behind the scenes stuff. It was really showing off. This is really not all that different than a Hollywood production, except it has the Bollywood style. And so that was kind of fascinating to see.
Because this guy who's the director, choreographer, Prabhu Deva, is apparently famous for literally inventing certain styles of dance that are in all Bollywood movies now that didn't exist before he came up with them. I mean, he's kind of a cross between classic Indian style dancing and kind of Michael Jackson robotics and moonwalking and there's the Elvis guys. Yeah. The Elvises with red leis and they're almost like mariachis. And this is in Austria by a lake.
That was another part I didn't get, because at one point she's talking about America all the time, and I think it's because her sister is there. Is that right?
Something like that. But
so how did they end up in Austria? What was that all about?
No, I have no idea. I sat there going, wait a minute, that's not India or anywhere in the Far East. That's a lake. I thought it was Switzerland first, and then I realized it was Austria.
Why wouldn't they in Austria is a better question to ask.
I mean, the big question to me, my first thought was, I wonder if there's like a big Indian population in Austria that they were catering to, that they're going to watch this movie there and make them a few bucks. Or if the company has made movies there and the currency is tied up in Austrian currency controls, and so they could basically shoot it for free based on the money that their movies had made. There's all kinds of weird deals like that in the world between different countries. So you never know.
The part of the movie that I liked, the first 45 minutes was a slog because I had literally no idea of what was going on. And my patience was starting to wear thin. But once you get to the flashback and once you get to the mafia story, suddenly it becomes interesting. And it's actually not all that different than any other standard action revenge flick that you would see here, except for It's interrupted by dance numbers and comedic bits. It's just,
and the dance numbers are good. I mean, they are to Bollywood style what Busby Berkeley or all the great MGM musicals would have been if they could have afforded the size of the cast. Yep. I mean, every last person of those 50, 75 people on the screen, A, are great dancers, and B, are dancing their little hearts out.
I was watching this movie on and off. Even prior to this, I'd sent a message to Lou and Lauren basically saying, I felt like I watched an hour, and then I looked and it was only 18 minutes, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it through the entire thing. But, you know, watching it late at night when you're ready to go to bed, you almost feel like you're kind of hallucinating because these dance numbers just kind of come at you out of nowhere, right? Like one of these,
yes,
in one of these instances, the schlubby guy's girlfriend is talking with AJ in a coffee shop, and you got like this dramatic music and it's very sad and everything, and then blam, she's like in the costume on the screen and dancing her heart out, and you're kind of like, what? Why?
Because it was time for a musical number.
Right,
exactly.
Why not is the answer. Yeah.
Well, I kind of think that's how it works. I think there's an expectation that you're going to have musical numbers. And if you've gone 15 to 20 minutes, then it's time for one. And so you find a way to insert that in there.
And Sonakshi Sinha, who plays the main girl, you know what I love about her compared to American stars of this type of role? You know, she's a big girl. She's not some skinny like the others are anyway, and it works, you know. And she started out apparently as a costume designer and worked into acting, and her father was a member of parliament, for God's sakes.
Wow.
And then the girl who plays the wife also was a model and was in soap operas, and then she got a Z Cine Award for Best Female Debut. And our hero, Ajay, his real original name was Vishal Viru Devan, and he changed his last name. He took the A out to Devgn at his parents' request, and he changed his first name, Vishal, because as he was breaking into the business, there were 3 or 4 other actors also named Vishal, and he didn't want to be confused with them. So he came up with AJ, and all these years later, Action Jackson, AJ, somehow worked out. This guy's been in over 100 movies. Now, to give you some reference again, you know how many Arnold's done? Like maybe 40, 45. Same thing with Sly, same thing with anybody you can think of. But again, when they're making thousands, what's 100 for 1,000, you know?
The guy started in 1991, and I'm just looking at his filmography, and I keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
So he's only been doing this since 91?
Yeah, but like, I mean, he's already got 3 lined up
a year.
At least, in some cases, 4.
Yeah, like he's
54 years old, for God's sakes. He's no kid to do some of those action sequences, which granted, a lot of it is wire work and animation, but still, and that's another thing.
They turn these things around?
I don't know, but and these girls are all in their 30s.
He did 5 movies in 2024.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's an amazing amount of output.
And it shows you if the audience likes you, by God, you keep working, you know, and
yeah, and he's got 3 lined up for 2025 already. Wow. But I'm looking at the reviews now, and they're not good. Yet another action comedy hits theaters.
They didn't like it for some reason, but I sure did.
Why did anyone put their hard-earned money into this project when it's evident the director, Prabhu Deva, is quite evidently the worst filmmaker in Bollywood, and that's saying a lot. Action Jackson's a drinking game of a film.
just to show we're everywhere. The guy who plays the buddy, the kind of goofy buddy with the food stuff, one of the members of my tribe. He's an Indian Jew. Go figure. Turns out. And he was actually in a British series called Mamgai Calling. And he was in a movie called Delhi Belly.
Oh, boy.
I do think that maybe, of course, this is coming from a guy who is primarily steeped in Western movies. I think had you cut out the comedic bits, or at least toned them down, I do think it would have worked better. I think it would have been more of a traditional revenge movie. In a lot of ways, I got vibes of Westerns and Death Wish and things like that from this. You know?
Yes.
It's clearly not, but you can see where the inspirations come from.
And there are 9, I just looked at it, 9 musical numbers, for God's sakes.
Is that what it is?
In 2.5 hours,
yeah,
that's a lot of music.
Each one going for probably 4 to 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And I mean, and the things that they're using as props in these fight scenes, he does this whole thing with toothpicks, for God's sakes, in one scene that'll just, swords, fine, but toothpicks?
I'm not a fan of wire work or the over the top smashing through things kind of stuff. I prefer more realistic action. But this guy knows how to work with swords. That was actually pretty interesting.
That's for sure. That is for sure.
One other thing that I wasn't crazy about, and I think this is also probably part of the style, is they do a lot of quick cutting.
Yeah.
They don't really let the action speak for itself. It's not like shaky cam, but you kind of get the same sense because they're cutting from shot to shot to shot to shot, and that gives it kind of an artificiality. On the other hand, I kind of think that's a bit of what they're looking for. They want the exaggerated style, and so I think that's probably intentional.
Well, I mean, keep in mind that the critics are saying that this guy's one of the worst directors in Bollywood.
Which is funny because he only works all the time and is one of the most famous dance directors in that country. So,
but
it seems like if they don't like you, they really don't like you, and if they like you, they like you, and everything changes from time to time.
But that is one of the things I picked up on when I was watching this film, like the way that the cuts, again, even something as simple as going to get a coffee, it's like side angle, close up on the espresso machine as the coffee shoots into the cup, and then blam, they're sitting at the table all of a sudden having this intense conversation, and then wipe, it's a dance number.
Now,
and then suddenly it's John Wick.
The dance numbers are interesting in the sense as well as that it almost becomes a different movie. It's like they are music videos. It's like it's a totally different style.
Yes, they are.
And so that was intriguing.
In ways that even the Busby Berkeley and MGM classics were not. You know?
It's not like a stage act. It's like literally an MTV video. And I mean, from back when they did that.
Yeah, right. It's a lot of fun. It's just it's not mindless fun. It is semi-mindless fun, but it's got something for everybody. And it's just, I was just enchanted by it as I started watching it originally. And
another thing that just occurred to me that I had totally forgotten about. What was the subplot with the kid in the school?
I don't know. It was trying to, I guess, show that the guy was a goon with a heart of gold or something like that.
Is that what it was?
There was this whole thing where the kid was having trouble with the principal, and he basically goes in and threatens him into giving him a break. And it was, he's loved by women and children, so he must be a good guy, even if he is kind of a schlub, I guess. Yeah, that was all I got out of it. But
it's part of the whole setting him up as this good guy with a heart of gold type of thing. Like at the very beginning at the hotel resort that he was working at, every single vignette, every minute is dedicated to, oh, wow, look, hey, how's it going? Oh, you're doing good here. Have this. Oh, you dropped this. Oh, let me help you with this. Like
he's the popular pool boy.
Yeah, exactly. He's the popular pool boy. Exactly.
The cabana boy.
Now, I do think if you had an entire movie that was setting this movie up with AJ as the enforcer for this weapons dealer mob guy, I could see that being really intriguing, because that, I think, was the most interesting part of the movie for me, was seeing what he was like as this weapons dealer's enforcer. And I think you could probably do a series of movies on that.
If this had been a hit, they probably would have, but it wasn't, so go figure.
And I love the song, like, hey, AJ!
Yeah. And the trailer has all... no reservation, just punishment. They play it as a serious movie, but they still show you clips of the music. So,
and what I found really interesting, did you guys notice near the beginning of the film when Bruce Willis made a cameo?
Yes.
But so did a bunch of other movie posters. They were obviously obsessed with comic books because they had Superman and Spider-Man and Batman in various scenes.
Yeah. The other thing that I found interesting too is the product placement seemed all over the place. Like, I guess the lady who ends up being the schlubby guy's girlfriend at the end, she's got this kind of pack of her girls, like these 4 other coworkers, I guess.
Right,
and
her girlfriends.
They spend a lot of time in this food court. I was noticing like every single person in that food court was drinking from a McDonald's cup and eating from Domino's boxes.
I have to think it's product placement. There is this thing, for those who don't know, in Hollywood and obviously in Bollywood, called product placement, where brands pay to have their products prominently displayed in scenes. I think the weirdest one I ever saw was, I forget what film it was, but it was supposed to be backstage at a Broadway theater. And on a little table, as these two people talked, there was a pyramid of lava soap for no reason whatsoever, other than they paid to be in the damn movie,
That's fantastic.
So after watching this thing, I'll reluctantly admit there's a part of me that sort of wants to watch it again just to see if I can figure out what the parts I didn't understand are about, now kind of knowing how the timeline works. But you're exhausted after watching this thing.
Oh, yeah. It wears you out.
How? Like, you get your money's worth, that's for sure.
Especially if you paid a nickel in Bombay. My God, What a deal.
It is. Like, it feels like I watched the Disney Plus miniseries.
So,
only one with talent.
Yesterday, Tommy, when you sent that message, you said, I'm 18 minutes into this thing. I don't know if I can get through it. I messaged you back and said, oh, no, mister. You were all in on this thing. Now you got to carry out and eat your vegetables, is what I said. Because
that is what you said.
I have to ask a question then, because I respect you both as friends and colleagues on this. Are you okay with the fact that I made you do this? Did you enjoy things in it that made it worth the effort?
I'm better with it today than I was yesterday. I wasn't happy
than you will be tomorrow.
But the thing is that I teased you this morning by messaging you and saying, hey, I'm 19 minutes into this thing and I don't know if I can get through it. I was teasing, but then I got about 40 minutes into it and I was thinking, oh my God. This is a 2 hour and 17 minute movie. I had to pause it and get up and walk away and do some other things many times while watching this, because
thank God for video rather than being in the theater. That's for sure.
I can't even imagine trying to watch this straight through. It would. I think your head would explode.
You'd have a stroke. I think. Like you just like you'd be. I don't know.
I think,
or just catatonic.
I think I got up 2 or 3 times during it when I watched it the first time. So
I do want to know, Tommy, though, because your experience is the one I'm most interested in. I already know that Blue loved this.
Yeah.
First of all, how many times watching it did you go, what? What? And did you watch this with anybody else? Did you have to explain this to anybody? How did this go for you?
So to answer your first question, okay, well, right off the bat, Lou, no, this was great. I mean, it was great in a painful way, but I appreciated it. The experience is everything, right? So yes, I felt like I was on sort of drugs when I was watching this, and that was compounded by the fact that, okay, so this is free on YouTube. You can watch it, you can Google it, you can find it relatively easy, and there are no subtitles. But I felt at first that the audio was a bit off because it didn't feel like their mouths were syncing up with what they were saying that well. But what really kind of threw me for a loop was, as you mentioned before, their sporadic use of English. And it's not just like, it's like perfect, like British English, right? They'd be like, oh, good morning, and then blah, 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 blah. And so it almost would, like, you would instinctively feel that they're about to say something in English, and then blam, they go off in a completely other language.
It made more sense in the hotel scenes in the sense that there could have been foreign guests staying there and you'd have to speak English to them. But we're trying to make sense out of any of this, which is probably a fool's errand. But
so that was kind of like tripping me up a little bit. But the entire film, I'm watching this, I'm like, even in my notes, after what felt like an hour, it was only 18 minutes. The production values are good. I can't figure if this is corny on purpose or just part of the culture. Elvis backup dancers. The courting process is strange. Twin brother. He has superpowers in the Matrix. There's extreme violence, but no kissing. Didn't the big muscle guy get a knife in the heart? Why is he still alive?
There's lots of that.
And I mean, holy guacamole, the violence. And so, I don't think I've ever seen a member of the fairer sex getting that brutally beaten on
That was pretty bad.
screen
I agree.
before. Like full blown
Twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like not just kind of like smacked around, like full blown roundhouse fists to the face, like a literal knife in the back. Like her head getting like grabbed and smashed through like it was just, I was sitting there, I'm like, oh my God. And yet they still won't show the two main actors actually kissing. Did you ever notice that? Like they never did. It kind of takes that whole American movie thing where, you can show any sort of violence you want, but as soon as you flash a nipple, it's game over to like the nth degree.
Well, I don't know. He showed his quite a bit.
That's true. That's true.
I do think, as I was thinking about it, as I was watching it, one of the things that struck me is that it really does have all of the tropes that you would expect from an American action movie. And while I was watching all of the stuff related to his background as an enforcer, what I was thinking is that this is ridiculous, but it's no more ridiculous than our own. It's Die Hard is just as ridiculous. It's just ridiculous in a different way. And I think what they're doing is they're mixing the musical and the comedic bits. The comedic bits are just like our one-liners after you kill a bad guy. It's just...
Yeah, that's a Smith & Wesson and you've had your six, like we talked about last time. Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. So I think in that sense, what it really made me feel is that, okay, yes, there are some major cultural differences here, but their audience is no real different than ours. They just got their own tropes that just are slightly different.
Well, they've been educated on ours and then have taken them to an nth degree beyond anything we've ever done, is the way I look at it. Yeah. The roots, the core of the Hollywood part of Bollywood are in this, but we'd never put all this in the same movie. We'd do a romantic comedy with music, or we'd do an action movie, but not all in the same damn movie for 2.5 hours. So,
well, the fact, like, I hadn't realized how prolific Bollywood was before you mentioned it, Lou. And so part of my, how do I put this, reaction to this film was thinking like, oh my God, like, how do people watch this, right? Like without being exhausted, without kind of, going into seizures and whatnot. But if they're pumping these films out so much and people have such ready access to them, yeah, like this is what they expect, I guess. Like this is what the audience wants and has been conditioned to basically digest from these films. And so this is normal for them.
and I'll tell you something else. As it fades, sadly, from our society, obviously the movie-going experience is alive and well over there.
Yeah.
These are movies that are made to be seen in a room with 200 other people, not to be watched alone like we did.
That was actually one of the things I wanted to ask, and I'm not sure if you would know the answer to this, Lou. What is the movie-going experience like in India? Like, for instance, do they talk at the theater? Or are they having conversations while the movie's going on?
I don't have any idea, but but that reminds me of many years ago going to a movie at the Wiltern, which is this old Art Deco palace at Wilshire and Western in Hollywood that probably holds 1,500 people. And it was a late Saturday night, and it was a Vincent Price movie where he's the witchfinder general and he's torturing the countryside. And at the end, when the townspeople finally grab him and burn him at the stake, the largely black audience at about 11:30 at night on a Saturday night were going, yeah, get that sucker. They were talking back to the screen. And I thought, well, that's kind of fun in a way, as long as it doesn't disturb you. Nowadays, everybody's on their damn phone and ignoring you. So I don't know.
Kind of why I asked is because if they do talk a lot at the theater, that might explain why it's so chock full of stuff. It's that you can ignore a good fair amount of it and probably not miss a whole lot.
I wonder if they applaud at the end of the dance numbers. That's what I wonder.
Possible.
They must.
And that brings me to a larger issue. I have been saying in our vast talk on our channels about the whole Disney thing.
Yeah.
That when the history of all of this is written sometime 20, 30 years from now or longer, the biggest error that Iger and company made, aside from all their others, was not going into India, but going into China instead. If you look at, as strange as this is, as un-American as this is, and I mean that not in a political way, but in a cultural way, if you look at how similar the audience desire for entertainment and for sharing the experience of going to the movies is they're so much more like us than the Chinese are. If Disney had gone there, and if their new cruise ship was based there, and oh God, they'd be reaping in even at 50 cents a dollar, $2 a head, or whatever they were getting for Disney Plus with Hotstar that they've lost now and overpaid for. We have a whole heck of a lot in common with this audience. We really do.
Maybe their tolerance levels are higher than ours.
Well, but again, if this is what you expect, right, that's also probably why this got some bad, we don't know what they liked compared to this the same year. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they have so many, which we know, that they can be pickier about what they really, really give attention to. And the other thing is, at a nickel a ticket or 50 cents or $1 a ticket or whatever, and then you see some of these people with net worths in the hundreds of millions of dollars, they have to make a lot of movies to make that kind of money because they can't pay them for any one of them as much as we pay. And that goes for the technicians and everybody else too. The audience return doesn't pay off that way. And obviously it does, or they wouldn't be making thousands of movies. So there's that side of the economic equation.
All right, guys, it's time. You got to give us one thing you liked and one thing you didn't like about this film. And I'm going to start with you, Lou.
I loved the wacko, crazy wonderfulness of it. And that includes the whole damn thing, even the parts I didn't understand. And I didn't like that I didn't understand why the hell they were in Austria. And certainly that violence against women issue is a bit hard to take in this movie.
Could it have been a honeymoon?
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe that's it. But it wasn't the guy who was married that was there. It was the guy and the girl from the HR department in India. So there had to be a financial reason why Austria got in the act on this thing. It just had to be. There had to be some kind of a reciprocal agreement with Austria some kind of way. Or maybe the Austrian Tourism Board paid him. When I was making sitcoms, if you mentioned a certain Caribbean island in your script, you got a check. You didn't ask for it. It just happened. It just magically happened. And it was known to a lot of the writers and the producers because they had a budget for that to promote vacations there. So you never know what's going on behind the scenes in this business.
What's the plural of Elvis? Elvi?
Yeah, the 4 Elvi. That's right.
Okay.
Well, that was the skydiving Elvi in that Weekend in Las Vegas or Marriage in Las Vegas. So, yeah, the Elvi is the
Las
official
Vegas
term. Right. No. But anyway.
Okay, what about you, Lorn?
Well, Lou didn't say what he didn't like.
No, he said, the violence against women.
Yeah, and I thought the crazy bad girl was a little too over the top for my taste. That whole shaving your head at the end.
Where he tackles like a
witch laugh.
Exactly. That became a cartoon, as if the rest of the movie wasn't. I shouldn't say it that way, but that became a cartoon, that's for sure.
Well, for me, I mean, I like the mob subplot and him being an enforcer and showing all of that background. And
right.
I thought it was that was when the movie gelled for me. And if that hadn't been there, I don't think it would have. I'm not a fan of a lot of wire work. I'm not a fan of a lot of quick cutting. So I wasn't a big fan of that. Totally, this thing was all over the map. I think if it didn't have the comedic bits and the music numbers, you'd be losing the Bollywood style of it. But I think I would have enjoyed it as a movie a lot more. But then it would have been an American movie, and you wouldn't have gotten the flavor of India with it, I don't think.
Yeah, it would have been an Action Jackson takeoff. Exactly.
And what about what you didn't like?
That was what I didn't like.
Oh,
yeah, right.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm trying. So, what did I like about it? Well, I mean, the production values were wild. Like, you could see that a lot of effort and time went into quite a bit of this. Like, I mean, the action sequences, the sets, the cinematography, the computer graphics, I guess, but it was high budget and it showed. I think I appreciated that refined touch. I think what I didn't like, or what sort of fell a bit flat for me, was that, yes, this is a Bollywood movie. Yes, it it doesn't take itself seriously. But I felt that the directing style was just too frenetic. Like, you couldn't, it was almost like the director was just so eager to show you the next scene that he just kept cutting and cutting and switching and cutting and cutting. And maybe that was the intent. I don't know, but
that's certainly a trope of his style that you could take or leave. I agree.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I was just kind of like, God, pour me a whiskey, I'm done type of thing after a little while. Like,
They
you feel
make
like
some
you-
good whiskey over there, by the way.
Yeah. Like you feel like you run a marathon. But all that to be said, this was an experience. So thank you, Lou, for that experience. Life is about the voyage, not the destination, right?
I know probably none of you out there watching this have never seen this movie. You got the links just to go and try. I sure hope you come back afterwards and tell us what you thought.
Yeah. And tell us how long you lasted, if you're able to make it through the entire
for
film.
God's sakes.
Yes.
Last. Go ahead and last. Never ask a man how long he lasted, as the actor said to the bishop. But we had danger in this, but next time we get very dangerous.
Uh-oh.
Very dangerous indeed. And we're back to Hollywood, or a part of Hollywood, and everybody's favorite sheriff in New England taking on a whole different role. One of the best, and in many ways obscure, remakes of a French movie by Hollywood with Roy Scheider. So we'll leave you with that little teaser. And by the way, I keep meaning to mention, the people in the chats on the main channel have been so generous handing out free memberships. I mean, there's people giving 40, 50 memberships every time, which amazes me and is wonderful. And thank you so much. If you got here because of a brand new membership, don't forget, we've been doing these for a couple of months now. Yeah. And there are lots of wonderful, broad range of films that we've done, everything from Hitchcock to World War II to comedy to biblical allegory to you name it, fiction. Action Jackson.
Yep.
So go check out the other genre guys and then let us know what film you think we ought to do next.
Yeah. No, 100%. We would love your feedback. We would love your comments. Leave them down below. We read them. We respond to them at times. Happy April Fools, everybody. I hope you guys all had a wonderful Easter weekend as well. And
I think you'll like this. No fooling.
No fooling. Oh, geez. I can't top that. Okay, we're done. That's a wrap. See you next time, everybody.
No reservation. Just punishment.
Lorn, any final words?
I am curious to see what the audience thinks if they do go and watch this. It's a lot. And I will say, if you can't get through it, I would totally understand. But I stuck with it. It took a while, but it did grab me. So if you can get past that first 45 minutes, I know that's a big ask, you might find that it's worth it. Give it a shot.
Enough said.
To grow on. Have a good day, night, evening, day, morning, wherever you might be, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed that special presentation of The Genre Guys here on 23PO. Be sure to subscribe to this channel for more content like it. And if you want to enjoy every episode of The Genre Guys as soon as they are released, be sure to become a member at WW Pro's YouTube channel. What were your thoughts on this amazing film? Let us know in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching. T3PO. Please comment, like, and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to That Park Place Podcasts Online, your source for exclusive content and highlights from WDW Pro, The Pro Show, and That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.